The United Kingdom will soon have a new Prime Minister, and with that likely comes a new Energy Secretary. Now, if you had just 5 minutes with them before they walked into that office for the very first time, what would be the 5 things you'd ask them to do? Now, over the last few weeks, I've given this some thought, and I want to share with you the 5 things that I think a new Energy Secretary should be laser focused on. Not in 5 years, not after the next election or another consultation, from day one. Now, none of these ideas require a technological breakthrough. Most don't even require inventing anything new. They simply require the political will to put consumers first and not get tied up by lobbyists and red tape and civil service bureaucracy.
If it's our job to carry out government policies, shouldn't we believe in them?
What an extraordinary idea.
So let's dive in and see how a new Energy Secretary could set themselves apart from all of those that came before. Because ask yourself this: do you remember who was the previous Energy Secretary before Ed Miliband? I certainly don't. Now, before anyone rushes to the comments, this isn't about political parties. To be totally honest, I don't care whether the next government is Labour, Conservative, Reform, or anyone else. What I want from them is action. I want to see cheap, reliable, and secure energy, and this shouldn't be a left thing or a right wing issue. It should simply be common sense, something that we don't see a lot from politicians these days. Now, over the last few years, I've spent thousands of hours looking at people's energy bills, testing solar and battery systems, installing them, running a heat pump, driving electric vehicles, and perhaps the most important thing is I've been listening to all of you. Some of you have solar, but most don't. Some of you have a heat pump, but the vast majority of you still rely on gas for heating. And a lot of you are just struggling to pay the bills. But one thing that nearly everyone agrees on is that our energy system has become unnecessarily complicated and super expensive. So if I had just 5 minutes with the next Energy Secretary, these would be my priorities. Now, the first thing I would do is change the name of the department. Now, I've talked about this before, but let's start with something that sounds really superficial, but I think is incredibly important. The Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, or DESNES. Ask 10 people in the street what DESNES stands for, and I doubt many could tell you, if any at all. More importantly, the name tells you what government thinks its priorities are. I'd rename it on day one. Personally, I'd simply call it the Department for Energy. Or perhaps, even better, the Department for Energy Affordability. Because that's what households care about. People don't wake up in the morning wonder whether government departments have achieved another target. They wake up wondering whether they can afford to heat their home this winter. And remember, net zero is a self-imposed goal. We did this to ourselves. So we need to realign our priorities. And while net zero can still be a target, it's not the priority for the vast majority of us. If you can make affordable, reliable, and secure energy your number one priority, then everything else becomes easier, even net zero. Okay, number 2, breaking the link between electricity and gas. This would be my second priority and would be how we reform energy pricing. Now, this has been discussed a lot on this channel and many others, but Britain has invested billions of pounds building renewable generation. Lots of wind, solar, hydro, nuclear. Most of the electricity is incredibly cheap to generate, yet consumers often pay prices that are still heavily influenced by the cost of gas. And that just doesn't make sense anymore. Now, I'm not pretending this would be easy. But a system that was designed when coal was our major energy source should not be dictating our energy bills today. The wholesale market is complicated, but that's our own doing. Simply put, the long-term goal should be that electricity prices increasingly reflect the cost of its production, not the cost of importing gas and using that to create electricity. If we're investing, and remember, when we say investing, we're talking about using UK taxpayers' money into cheap renewable electricity, consumers should actually benefit from it. Number 3 would be to put solar and batteries on every social home in the UK. If the government wants to make one investment that pays back year after year, I'd start with social housing. Imagine every suitable home fitted with rooftop solar and modest batteries. The family living there would immediately benefit from lower bills. Fuel poverty reduces. Endless payments through the benefit system to help with fuel bills reduce immediately. Pressure on winter fuel support schemes falls, and government spends less helping people with energy costs year after year after year. Now, the national grid benefits as well because demand is spread more evenly. Now, this isn't about giving people something for free, and I'm sure there'll be people in the comments making derogatory things about people that live in social housing, but the reality is it's about making a long-term investment. Instead of just paying the bills as they come in year after year, it's about investing in something which will ultimately reduce the government spend over a very long period. Now, number 4 is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. We should be moving policy costs out of energy bills completely. Now, this is something I've spoken about before. Your energy bill should be to pay for your energy. If the government wants to fund insulation programs, offshore wind, new power stations, carbon reduction and sequestration schemes, or anything else, anything that is national policy, then it should be debated openly in Parliament and it should be funded from general taxation. They shouldn't be allowed to quietly load those costs onto electricity bills, where most people and businesses never even realise what they're paying for. Electricity has already become the fuel of the future. More and more houses are moving off of gas, but making electricity artificially expensive sends exactly the wrong message to consumers who you're trying to convince to give up gas. Whoever the next energy minister is, please stop delaying plug-in solar. The UK has spent years researching it. We've had consultations, safety reports, interim specifications, working groups. Meanwhile, other countries like Germany have already demonstrated that these systems can be deployed safely and installed correctly. Let's get on and finish the work. Publish the final regulations, give retailers certainty, give manufacturers the certainty so they know what to build, but more importantly, give us as consumers the confidence to install it. If we can get this legislation done by the end of 2026, households can begin to install the systems over the winter and be ready for next summer, instead of waiting yet another year because some civil servant really doesn't understand the priority here.
I recommend that we set up an interdepartmental committee with fairly broad terms of reference so that at the end of the day we'll be in a position to think through the various implications and arrive at a decision based on long-term consideration.
Okay, I've had my 5, but let me sneak in a bonus one. One extra request. Remove VAT. Energy isn't a luxury, it's an essential service. Every household and business should be able to benefit from this immediately. It's simple to understand, simple to implement, and at a time when affordability is such a huge issue, it's difficult to justify taxing people simply for heating their homes and putting the lights on and maybe cooking their dinner. So those would be my priorities. Not because they're politically fashionable, not because they benefit one particular technology, and certainly not because they solve every problem overnight, but because every single one puts consumers first. Lower bills, greater energy independence, more transparency, more certainty, and a system that's easier for ordinary households to understand. Now, I'd genuinely like to hear from you. If you had 5 minutes with the next Energy Secretary and you could persuade them to do just one thing, what would it be? Let me know in the comments below. Because who knows, maybe somebody in Whitehall will hear about this, will hear from one of us and actually do something. That's it for today's video. I hope you found this thought-provoking. If you did, a like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated. And if I'm lucky, I'll see you back here real soon for another video. Take care. Bye-bye.